Well, that was awesome. I gotta say, like, I never had a chance to talk about Ghost of Yotei. Didn't really have a doubt, though, but that's what makes this whole thing really interesting to me, because when I first covered Ghost of Tsushima, and they did a state of play for that, famously so, I was like, I don't really know about this. You know, I look at Sucker Punch and their history, and of course I think of my beloved, one of my favorite games of all time, Sly 2 Band of Thieves. I feel like I quote that game weekly, but also just Sucker Punch evolved perfectly. They went from Sly Cooper, I went, no, bring it back to Infamous, and I went, wait, this is Gas 2. I love this as well. Keep doing this. And then they moved to Ghost of Tsushima. When they moved to Ghost of Tsushima, my concern was just looking at the game, I felt like I had maybe seen this before. And when I look at what Sucker Punch does, I think not that. I think of, you know, raccoons stealing things, and I think of me shooting lightning out of my hand that's red because I decided to be evil. I think of that. So when I looked at Tsushima, I went, this is beautiful, but this feels a little, you know, Ubisoft open world. And as I mentioned in my review of the game, I was dead wrong. I absolutely loved Ghost of Tsushima, and I've gone on to do retrospectives of it over on Retro Rebound. But today we got our first real deep dive, like 15, 20 minutes of gameplay here on Ghost of Yotei, and really got a peek behind the curtains of what's staying, but also what's new, like that Watanabe mode. Bro, dude, you're telling me I can just stroll around the edge of Japan, listen to some Japanese lo-fi? That playlist is going to be on repeat in the Mr. Matty household. I cannot wait for that. But yeah, they're leaning into a lot of the things that made Tsushima great, which I'll talk about, but also some new things here. So I'm excited to dive in, ladies and gentlemen. If you're new here, you're interested in what's going on in gaming, consider subscribing. Time traveling. Okay. I think this is going to be a really interesting narrative tool. Just that idea of going to your past whenever. I feel like flashback storytelling has needed to evolve for a while, and this is another one of those PS5 SSD moments, right? I always go back to Ratchet and Clank, and I got a lot of love for Ratchet and Clank, got a lot of love for my Lombaks and whatnot, but it just didn't feel like it delivered on that SSD sales pitch that we were being told. And I was like, okay, it's visual, it's cool and all, but this aids the narrative. And I think because of that, there's a lot of opportunities here to really connect you to Atsu and push the narrative even further forward. You see, one of the things that caught me off guard with Tsushima, which I can't say outside of Sly 2, I felt really strongly about any other Sucker Punch story. Like, they've been great. For example, Infamous is awesome to me because Infamous gives me a lot of power and choice, and that makes this story really good. I mean, the narrative itself is solid, but like Tsushima was just a pure narrative. And it's funny because to me, a lot of that morality and choice and consequence would have fit really well in Ghost of Tsushima, but they made it work so beautifully. So going into Ghost of Yotei, I was a little bit like, all right, we're changing protagonists here. I'm loving the balls, but at the same time, like Jin was that dude. I love Jin Sakai. So I was a little bit skeptical. Still, admittedly, a bit skeptical, because what's interesting here is this will be a really good conversation to have. Again, if you love nuance, that is. Many people don't, but if you do love nuance-filled conversations, it's going to be really neat to side-by-side this with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Not just because, oh, two open-world Japan games in the same year, but the story ideas in some areas are very similar. Like, both game stories are about a woman going out and taking out a legion of villains, if you will, who have killed their family, you know, and like just that quest for revenge. In the case of Assassin's Creed Shadows, as when I covered that game with my review/impressions video, I did drop that game pretty immediately in the scheme of things. I gave that game anywhere from 10 to 20 hours. I can't remember the exact number, and then decided to move on because I felt like I had seen all of that before. But presentation matters a lot, and that's where Ghost of Tsushima really nailed it, and where it feels like Yotei's taking it up a notch. So that whole time traveling thing, I think, just unlocks a lot of narrative potential, but also, you know, you see the modes that they're doing, the Kurosawa mode, famously so, but then also other Japanese director modes. We already talked about Watanabe, but then like Miike, just like increased blood and mud and just paying homage to that culture. I mean, Japan celebrates this game heavily, so I think it was really smart to do this here with Ghost of Tsushima, because it's very rare for a Western title to get that kind of respect, you know, and to nail it so authentically. So I think it was a really good call to go into those modes. So yeah, I'm interested in the narrative on a level of how will you separate yourself from what Ubisoft's doing? How will you tell that better? So again, these will be fun to really compare and contrast by the end of the year. Now, looking at the combat, I actually am really excited about this too, because I liked the stances from the first game, but this seems to be a game all about customization and playing your way. Like, it was just the theme the whole way through the entire state of play. So when I started to see like a spear, dual blades, Kusarigama, I was really on board with that. But using those to target the weaknesses of your enemy, knocking weapons out of their hands so then they pull out different weapons, like they had the same capability as you. I feel like this is just ultimately a more refined version of the stances. Like, instead of switching stances based on the enemy, you're switching weapons based on the enemy, but you're also defending differently based on the enemy. So while I feel like some might view it as more of the same, it seems like one of those combat systems where I at least believe, you don't know until you play, but when you get your hands on it, it might be more complex than we give it credit for. So I thought that looked really good, but this was a little bit more of that, more of the same energy. And I don't think in a bad way. You saw the stealthing, you saw the one-on-ones, you saw the slow-mo kills, you saw the chain assassinations, you saw the little gadgets that you can use. It's just more of that. I mean, they showed a list of objectives throughout all these different characters, which, by the way, loved how they presented that. I think that's a lot more interesting and exciting as a player who cares about narrative, is to always continuously see these characters and have them kind of join you under the stars at your camp and play some music. But really the other part that was being emphasized here, and one that's tough to sell, but I respect them doing, is the take it at your own pace vibe. A lot of open world games play what's called the 15-second rule. Like, every 15 seconds, something is pulling your attention. What I really respect about Tsushima, and in turn Yotei seems to be doubling down on it, is it kind of goes against that. Like, you can roam that world for a minute and nothing happens. And I know people are going to hate this comparison, but it's part of the reason I love a good Bethesda Game Studios game. Like, I love the wandering and the feeling of nothing happening for a while. There is something about the calming down, the cooling down before we ramp back up, and just that constant roller coaster ride that is trekking an open world. I hope that the actual open world objectives add a little bit more gameplay or variety to them. I know Iki Island improved things. I haven't played much of that, but when I'm talking about the base game of Ghost of Tsushima, and it's like, you know, slashing the bamboo shoots or, you know, writing a haiku, like, these are cool Zen activities. And I know some of those are coming back. The hot tubs are back, but I'm hoping that on top of all of that, there are some new ones that they include here that add a little bit more depth to the open world on a play level and not just a Zen level. Because it looks like, again, with a lot of the traversal, I mean, they're just letting you take it at your own pace, which I'm pretty excited about. The card and clue system is a little bit interesting, especially when you get to some of your targets, how you can kind of choose how to exploit them for those cards. It feels like, I could be wrong, but it feels like Sucker Punch deeply wanted to go into sort of the Nemesis system route, just by nature of holding my target up and then having a choice on what to do with them and having that impact the world and where I go next. It's not exactly like, oh, I cut his arm off and he comes back later to haunt me. It's not that Nemesis system, but it feels like it literally is one step away from going in that direction. And obviously, given the trademarking, we can't have that, sadly, which just really bums me out. But it feels a little bit inspired by that system. I am interested in the clue system because it's interesting to see how it was utilized, where you'd get the clue card, you'd put it on the map, but this isn't a waypoint chasing game at all. So it seemed like there was a lot more, to me at least, map interaction, you know, placing things down on the map, whether it be cards or waypoints, and then using the guiding wind that way. But a lot of what I loved about Tsushima is that you just kind of naturally flowed from one objective to the next, and I thought that was a thing of beauty. And so I guess the twist, if anything, to me in this game and how it's handling its content is these cards are acquired by either finding characters and basically threatening to kill them, or it's by characters coming to you. If there's anything else that really stood out to me in this state of play, it's just watching as the world comes to you, like you're sitting under the stars. Here come characters to share stories and share tips. That sort of revolving door, I hope, continues into when I'm just roaming the world, not just when I choose to sit down in said world, because I think that will accomplish a bit of what I think this game's trying to do, which is compete a bit with Red Dead 2. I'll talk about that in a little bit. It's one of those moments where when you really nail a game on your first go around, my takeaway sometimes is that many creatives kind of don't know, like, what do we do? Just sell it to them again? We can't do that, but we have to add new things. And this kind of felt like that we have to add new things system. So it's not a bad thing at all. It just kind of read like, oh, this is just a little bit like different from how you would discover the objectives in Ghost of Tsushima. But I guess maybe that speaks to a little bit of the Red Dead Redemption 2ification of Ghost of Yotei. Not to bring it to that level right away. It's certainly got to prove itself, but that's just sense of true, awe-inspiring openness. Anything can happen out here, and kind of naturally finding the objective yourself. That's very Red Dead Redemption 2. So if they're pulling from that, I am really excited about it. Otherwise, I think it looks great. The only thing that'll put this thing up another notch is you better give me my dang Sly Cooper outfit again. Put it as an Easter egg, whatever it may be, it better be there. I'm also hoping they have some, like, you know, Jin Sakai stuff in there. So yeah, pretty excited about the customization and the charm system and whatnot. You do have a wolf that tags along with you, which was heavily hinted at in all of the trailers, but now we get to really see that in action, like kind of back to back with the wolf getting ambushed out in the open world. I think this game looks teed up to be a really good time. If the first one was anything to go by, delivering more of that is a good thing. I think the difference maker to me will be the story. If the story can really surpass the heights of Tsushima and Jin Sakai, I think we have like a Game of the Year conversation on our hands. But I'm just excited for more of the Ghost series, man. I mean, I have a lot of nostalgia for this one. I remember actually when I first started working in game development, I was going for the Platinum Trophy on Ghost of Tsushima. It was like during COVID, there was really nothing to do. We were all looking for things to fill up our time with, and that's where I ended up working in game development. But when we were kind of first doing the ideas on paper, the dreaming and all of that, I was playing that game. And so, like I've mentioned in Retro Rebound before, I do have like this weird level of nostalgia for Tsushima because it's just tied to a key moment in my lifetime. So excited to see more of Yotei. Not out of my seat again because I got to see how the story goes, but the presentation looks really good. Time traveling stuff seems really cool. So very much optimistic is what I would say. So yeah, looks awesome. Can't wait to see more. Let me know your thoughts on Ghost of Yotei down below. How are we feeling about this one, ladies and gentlemen? Fire away. Other than that, I'll catch all of you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all.